I was sipping my second cup of black coffee when the notification lit up my phone. The subject line was short, sharp, and cold. Return the $60,000 or don't come home. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen. My silk blouse clung to my shoulders, still warm from the steam of the iron, and yet I felt a chill crawl down my spine. Outside my floor-to-ceiling windows, the Manhattan skyline glowed like it was made for me. But in that instant, I was pulled back into a world I thought I'd escaped. My parents. Always finding a way to make love feel like a transaction. I set the coffee down untouched. The bitter aroma rose in the air, mixing with the faint trace of my perfume. My pulse drummed in my ears, not from fear, but from the irony of it all. They had no idea who I'd become, no idea what I'd built from the ruins they left me in. To them, I was still the girl who once begged for a seat at their table. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I leaned back in my chair, ran a thumb along the gold band of my watch, and whispered into the quiet room. So, you want your $60,000 back? Fine. I'll give you a reason to mean it. I was 22 the night, everything unraveled. My parents stood in the kitchen of our suburban Ohio home, their voices sharp and clipped like knives being honed. My father's words still echo in my head. You owe us, Emma. $60,000. That's what we spent raising you. If you can't pay it back, you don't belong here. At first, I thought he was joking. Who calculates the cost of raising their own daughter like an invoice? But when my mother crossed her arms, lips pressed tight, I realized they meant every word. My throat tightened, a lump swelling as though it might choke me. I'm not a debt to be repaid, I stammered, voice shaking. My hands trembled so hard I gripped the edge of the counter just to steady myself. You'll understand one day, my mother said, her tone soft but laced with finality. Family isn't free. The sting of those words cut deeper than anything else. Family isn't free. As if I was some unwanted tenant overstaying my welcome. I remember bolting upstairs, slamming the door, and collapsing on my bed. Tears blurred the posters I'd never taken down from high school, the stuffed bear my grandmother had given me years before. She had been the only one who saw me, really saw me. Before she passed, she told me, Emma, don't let anyone put a price on your worth. You are not a receipt. That night, I clutched the little silver keychain she'd left me, a tiny charm in the shape of a compass. I turned it over and over in my palm, wishing it could point me to somewhere, anywhere, that felt like home. The shouting downstairs faded into muffled silence, but the truth was loud enough. If I wanted a life of my own, I'd have to walk away. And so I did. The next morning, I packed my duffel bag, slipped the compass into the pocket of my jeans, and left before sunrise. No goodbye, no note. Just the crunch of gravel under my sneakers as I walked toward a future I couldn't see, but knew had to be mine. Leaving home felt like leaping into darkness with no safety net. I arrived in New York City with $200, one suitcase, and the silver compass tucked safely in my pocket. The city was loud, unkind, and relentless, but it also pulsed with a kind of freedom I had never tasted before. I rented a tiny studio in Queens, one room, a leaking faucet, and a radiator that hissed like it had a personal grudge against me. I worked double shifts at a coffee shop, pouring lattes by day and mopping floors by night. Some nights I fell asleep still in my apron, hands smelling faintly of espresso and bleach. But there was something inside me, a stubborn flame that refused to die. One customer, a woman named Marissa, noticed it. She was sharp, polished, always in heels, with a confidence I envied. She was a marketing executive at a small but growing firm. One evening, after watching me juggle orders and still smile at every customer, she asked, "Have you ever thought about doing more than this?" I laughed then, embarrassed. Like what? Like business. You've got presence. You've got grit. People trust you. Marissa became the mentor I never knew I needed. She slipped me books on branding, taught me how to write proposals, and encouraged me to apply for internships I thought were out of reach. When I confessed I didn't even own a proper blazer for an interview, she loaned me one of hers. The climb was brutal. I was constantly underestimated, brushed off as too young or too naive. More than once, I cried in bathroom stalls after being talked over in meetings. But each time, I remembered my grandmother's words, "You are not a receipt." I hustled harder. I learned to pitch ideas with my chin lifted, to negotiate contracts with steady hands, to build trust with clients who eventually became loyal partners. My first big break came when a small fashion startup hired me to run their social media campaign. I worked nights building strategies, teaching myself design, analyzing data until my eyes burned. When their sales doubled in 6 months, word spread. Slowly, I carved a name for myself. First one client, then 3, then 10. I built a boutique marketing agency from scratch, running it quietly, discreetly. No flashy posts, no desperate need for validation. I kept my updates modest, careful not to let my parents catch wind of what I was doing. To them, I was just getting by, surviving paycheck to paycheck. What they never knew was that by 28, I had grown my agency into a multi-million-dollar firm with a roster of clients across fashion, tech, and lifestyle brands. My office overlooked Fifth Avenue, my team of 20 thrived under my leadership, and my life was finally mine. Still, some nights, I'd run my thumb across the compass keychain, remembering the girl who left Ohio with nothing but a duffel bag and a broken heart. That girl had built an empire, and no one, not even my parents, could put a price tag on it. The email had been the spark, but I knew it wouldn't end there. My parents were never the type to let go once they set their teeth into something. 2 weeks later, they showed up unannounced. I was in my office, perched on the 23rd floor of a glass tower overlooking Fifth Avenue. The space was everything I had once dreamed of, sunlight spilling across polished oak floors, walls lined with abstract art collected from young artists I'd supported, shelves stacked with awards I had once thought belonged only to other people. A vase of fresh lilies perfumed the air, their soft white petals a quiet reminder that I could finally afford beauty simply because it pleased me. When my assistant buzzed to say, "There's a Mr. and Mrs. Thompson here for you," I knew before she even finished. They walked in stiffly, as if the elevator ride up had carried all their judgments along with them. My father's jaw was set. My mother's eyes darted around the office, trying to take it all in while pretending not to. "Emma," my mother said first, her tone sugary but tight. "You look well." "I am well," I answered evenly, gesturing toward the leather chairs across from my desk. "Please sit." They didn't. My father cleared his throat, diving straight into business. "We weren't joking in that message. You owe us $60,000. We want it back. If you can't manage it, then you have no place in this family." For a moment, I simply looked at them. The man and woman who raised me, who measured affection in dollar signs and called it love. I let the silence stretch, watched their eyes flicker toward the framed certificates, the photographs of me shaking hands with CEOs, the crystal award engraved with Entrepreneur of the Year. Finally, I stood and walked to the window. The city sprawled beneath us, alive and unstoppable. "Do you have any idea what I've built?" I asked softly, my reflection overlapping theirs in the glass. My father frowned. "We didn't come here for riddles, Emma. We came for what's ours." I turned, my heels clicking sharply against the floor. "What's yours? You think raising me was a transaction? That I was some bad investment you expect to cash out on now?" My voice didn't tremble this time. It cut, clean and sharp. I walked back to my desk, opened the drawer, and pulled out a bound report, my firm's annual financial statement. With deliberate calm, I slid it across the desk toward them. "Take a look," I said. My mother hesitated, then picked it up. As her eyes scanned the numbers, revenue in the millions, profits that dwarfed their so-called debt, her mouth fell slightly open. My father leaned over her shoulder, disbelief carving deep lines across his face. This can't be right," he muttered. "Oh, it's right," I said, my voice steady. "Every client, every contract, every sleepless night, I earned this. On my own. Without a cent from you after I walked out that door." The room was thick with stunned silence. My mother's hand trembled as she set the report down, the pages fluttering. You said I owed you $60,000. I leaned forward, meeting their eyes. Do you know what that amount means to me now? It's less than 1 month's rent for this office. Less than the budget I allocate to flowers. 60,000 is nothing. And yet, you've clung to it like it defines me. Their faces told me everything. The disbelief, the shame, the realization that they had not only lost control of me, but also lost the chance to claim pride in who I had become. I let the silence stretch once more, then smiled faintly. So, tell me, do you still want your money back? My father's lips pressed into a thin line, but no words came. My mother's eyes flickered from the report to my face, her composure cracking like porcelain under pressure. For the first time in my life, I saw them unsure. I leaned back in my chair, folding one leg over the other, letting the weight of the silence do its work. You wanted repayment, I said finally, my tone calm but edged with steel. But I don't owe you money. What I owe you is the truth. They shifted uncomfortably, as if bracing for impact. You see, family isn't about debt or obligation. It's about respect, love, trust. You stripped that from me when you put a price tag on my existence. So, if you want a place in my life now, here are the conditions. My father scoffed, but it was hollow. Conditions? We're your parents. Exactly, I said sharply. You're supposed to set the example. And here's what that means going forward. I ticked off the first point on my fingers. 1. You will never again speak to me as if I am a burden to be paid for. If you want a relationship with me, it will be built on respect, not invoices. My mother's eyes filled with something that looked suspiciously like guilt. 2. I continued, my voice softening but staying firm. You will stop using guilt as your language of love. If you can't say something from a place of kindness, then don't say it at all. I let the words sink in before moving to the last. 3, and this one matters most. If you want to be in my life, you must also be willing to grow. That means therapy, honesty, and the courage to face your own patterns. Otherwise, we will remain strangers, no matter what blood says. The air hung heavy. My father opened his mouth, then closed it again, his pride and his fear waging war across his face. My mother reached for his hand, something I hadn't seen her do in years. I leaned forward, voice gentler now. This isn't about revenge. I don't want to punish you. But I will not bend myself into the girl who begged for crumbs of love. I am not her anymore. My words carried the weight of every sleepless night, every rejection, every ounce of grit it took to stand where I stood. And yet, beneath the steel, there was compassion. Because as much as they had hurt me, a part of me still longed for the parents I never truly had. I slid the report back toward them and rested the silver compass on top of it. If you want to find your way back to me, this is your map. But understand this. I held their gaze, steady and unflinching. I will never again pay the price for your love. For weeks after that meeting, the air between us was silent. No emails, no phone calls. Just the faint echo of my conditions lingering in the space where their demands had once been. I thought that might be the end of it, that they would choose pride over change, as they always had. But then, one rainy Sunday morning, I opened my inbox to find a short message from my mother. We started counseling. Your father says it feels pointless, but he went. I thought you'd want to know. I stared at the words for a long time, unsure whether to laugh, cry, or close the laptop and walk away. It wasn't an apology. Not yet. But it was movement, a shift in a direction I had once thought impossible. Over the months that followed, there were more signs. A holiday card arrived without any barbed remarks scribbled between the lines. A voicemail from my father, awkward and halting, where he said simply, "I hope you're doing well." For them, these small gestures were monumental. And for me, they were proof that change, however fragile, was possible. One evening, after a long day at the office, I found myself holding the little silver compass again. The edges were worn smooth now, the charm warm against my skin. I thought about the night I left home with nothing but that token and the echo of my grandmother's words. You are not a receipt. She had been right all along. My worth was never something to be calculated, demanded, or reduced to numbers on a page. It was in the nights I persevered when no one believed in me, in the empire I built from the ground up, in the woman I became when no one was watching. I stood by the window, the city glittering beneath me like a living constellation, and whispered a quiet thank you to the girl I once was, to the woman I had become, and to the compass that never let me forget my true north. And for the first time, I felt peace. Because now I knew, family may falter, love may come with conditions, but my independence, my strength, and my grace, those were mine. Untouchable. I smiled, slipping the compass back into my pocket. My story wasn't about revenge or even repayment. It was about reclaiming the power they thought they could take. And I had done exactly that.